Hello, I'm Les Bennett, and I'm with the American Association of Pharmaceutical Scientists. It is my pleasure to host this special series of interviews with individuals who are recognized for their innovations and contributions to the pharmaceutical sciences. Speaking on behalf of the association, one of our goals is to develop a series of videos in which we invite outstanding, eminent pharmaceutical scientists to discuss their points of view on events, issues, and challenges that have shaped the direction of the pharmaceutical sciences. We also explore their perspective on where the pharmaceutical sciences are headed in the future. Today, it is my pleasure to have the opportunity to visit with Professor Yuichi Sugiyama from the University of Tokyo. Yuichi, very nice to have you here.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
So I think it would be useful for all of us to hear what was the influence that led you to become a pharmaceutical scientist and why you moved in that direction?
Okay, so to answer that question, I have to tell you about our university system. We get into the university in Japan when I was 18 years old. So then, when we became third grade of the undergraduate student, we have to select which course we may choose. So initially, when I get into the university, I selected the science course, not the culture course. So then, at that time, I was at a loss which of the two science I should select, either mathematics or pharmaceutical sciences, or more biochemical sciences. So then I really, it took quite a long time for me to decide. But finally, looking at my friends who are very good at mathematics, I thought that probably I cannot compete with them. So then, I thought I want to do something which is helpful for human health. So then I decided to select the pharmaceutical sciences, and hopefully with the use of some mathematical method.
Okay, well, I think you're wrong. I think you could have worked in the mathematics also. So I've known you for more than 30 years and have watched you grow and your career, and it's been outstanding. You are undoubtedly the most influential pharmaceutical scientist in Japan, and it is our great pleasure to have you here with this interview today.
Thank you.
I'd like you to tell our audience what is happening in the pharmaceutical sciences in Japan, and you have this perspective of a 30-year. Which directions are it going, and where's the future?
Okay, the pharmaceutical sciences in Japan. So I would say, when I got into the graduate school of pharmaceutical sciences in my university, the major scientific area in pharmaceutical sciences are, I would say, organic chemistry and the biochemistry, protein chemistry, and to some extent pharmacology, and our, the drug formulation, drug delivery, and the pharmacokinetics is not necessarily the major field. But for the last 20, 30 years, so we are changing very much. So still, the medicinal chemistry and the biochemistry, molecular cell biology are one of the very big research area in our pharmaceutical sciences. However, our field, like the biochemical pharmacology, pharmacokinetics, drug transporters and drug metabolism and drug delivery system, those areas are becoming very, growing very much, and then play a very major part of the pharmaceutical sciences also in Japan. So that is a big change.
Yeah. Do you think, my perception is that when you started in graduate school, the pharmaceutical industry in Japan was nowhere as influential as it is today. And do you think part of that is the strength of the pharmaceutical sciences in the university growing and taking the industry in that direction?
Yes, I think so. that is the growing of the pharmaceutical sciences in the academia. I'm sure the affected or gave a very strong impact on the, how can I say, development of sciences also in pharmaceutical companies. You're right.
Yeah. So you've been a big innovator in terms of a lot of research areas, but from my own perspective, one of the things that I am very grateful is your assistance in making Japan and Japanese scientists part of the international community. I think you deserve a great deal of credit for that, and I congratulate you.
Thank you
and
very much.
Do you think that, I know that this was one of your goals, and I'd like to hear about it, why you thought this was important and what you feel that we've accomplished over the years.
Okay, thing, yes, in terms of the globalization or the globalization and also the collaboration with the people in US and the EU,
yes.
That is growing very much for the last 20 years, I would say. Actually, when I was a graduate student or a very young assistant professor, I would say 25 years ago or 30 years ago, just in average, one famous professor per 2 years visit our university. So then it's very seldom for me to be able to see those professors. But nowadays, the many professors visit also our laboratory, and also vice versa. Nowadays many people, including my colleagues, visit US and EU so many times a year. So that is very drastic change. So then I think that that kind of communication or globalization is really necessary for us. Many years ago, the most recent information is obtained just by reading the journals. But nowadays, by attending so many meetings, we can get the hot informations. I think in that sense, that is very, very important.
I remember, you probably remember this, but I remember when you first became professor, you told me that I make my students give their talks in English.
Yeah, right. That's
and
right.
I think you were probably the first, right?
Yeah,
that was the professors.
Right. Actually, since I became the professor almost 20 years ago, I did all of my seminars in my laboratory in English. So I forced my students to give a talk in English. I think that is a very good way. Actually, after they spend 2 or 3 years in my laboratory, they are not afraid of speaking English. Still, they have some problem in listening or hearing English, but with regards to speaking, they don't have any problem.
No, actually, I don't think they have trouble listening. So I think it's. I mean, it's not that English, because we speak it, is what the language should be.
Yeah.
But I think I appreciated you wanted to make sure that your students influenced and were influenced in a medium that was not colloquial, so that they could be international.
Yeah,
I think you had a great influence on what happened. Yeah.
Can I say something about that issue?
Sure.
That's true, not only in the academia field in Japan, but also in the industry field. About 10 years ago, I found it very difficult to select good speakers from the industrial part, particularly in the international meeting, because they have to speak. They have to give a lecture in Japanese, in English. But in the academia field, of course, I can find out some good speakers, but not necessarily true in industry. But nowadays, particularly for the last 10 years, the many young scientists are trained, not only in my laboratory, but also in several other good laboratories. So then they get into the pharmaceutical industry. So then they are growing very rapidly. So then I now can find quite a few, the good speakers, even from the pharmaceutical industry in Japan. I think it's a good advance.
So let's go back to when you did your postdoc.
Yeah.
And you came to the U.S.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
what was that? Was that a difficult period?
Actually, initially that I found it so difficult. I came to UCLA in the laboratory of Dr. Neil Kaplovitz. And then, when I decided to come to this laboratory, I started learning speaking English by tape or by some other tools. So then, I memorized many things to say something to Dr. Neil Kaplovitz. And then I kept practicing and practicing in the airplane. And actually, but when I saw him at the airport, I lost my word. So then I could not say anything to him. So then, later he told me that this guy from the University of Tokyo did not understand English at all. But, after a few weeks, I get used to that. So then I learned quite a lot from my advisor, Dr. Neil Kaplovitz.
That's a good story. I've never heard that story. That's good. Well, let's go. You have been extremely influential in terms of the science, not just in Japan, in our field. And I think you've been innovative. You've moved in different directions. And that's all been within the university. But now you are in these joint ventures like Riken and things like that. And I think it'd be worthwhile to talk about those and make everyone aware of what's going on in Japan in terms of these interactive areas funded by the government, I believe, right? Are they funded by the government? Or?
Yeah. But that is a interaction between the university and the government?
No, you're the program manager for the radio labeled.
Yeah. Oh, I see.
Those kinds of programs, because those are government funded programs. The government is supporting, and pharmacy or pharmaceutical scientists are a big part of it.
Right, that's right. Just recently, this year, I became the program leader of the new research grant granted by the government. That is about the use of PET imaging and microdosing and in vitro in vivo extrapolation to the new drug discovery and the development. And that can be done just only by the collaboration among the industry, academia, and also the regulatory authorities.
What is the driving force? What pushed that to happen? Is it?
Okay. For the last 5 years, I and some other people kept saying that we really need the guidance of the exploratory IND, so-called exploratory IND, including microdosing, to increase the success rate in drug development. So then, then to make it possible, we first made guidance of the microdosing that appeared this year, this June. So then, then we kept saying that this kind of EIND concept or approach is very, very important in the new drug discovery. So then we decided to apply for that research grant by discussing with people in pharmaceutical industry and also regulatory the bodies. So then that
so it
became
was
possible.
a joint effort of pharmaceutical scientists, led by pharmaceutical scientists, that then went to the government and said, this is something important for future innovation.
Yeah, right.
And the government responded.
Yeah,
but as I perceive it, that was driven by the pharmaceutical scientists.
Yeah, sure, of course. Driven by pharmaceutical scientists.
Yeah, I think it's a wonderful example of initiative of the pharmaceutical sciences having scientists having an important contribution, and we all congratulate you on
Thank
that.
you, thank you.
So let me talk a little bit more about You were chairman of the Board of Pharmaceutical Sciences of the International Pharmaceutical Federation, and you chaired the Second World Congress in Pharmaceutical Sciences in Kyoto. And give me a perspective of, from your own point of view, why was this important? Why was it important to do these things?
I see. You mean every 3 or 4 years, the FIP, and particularly Board of Pharmaceutical Science of FIP, does have the Pharmaceutical World Congress called PSWC. That was initiated by you, Les Bennett, year 2000. And then, the 4 years later, 2004, I did the PSWC 2004 in Kyoto. And then, the 2007, it was chaired by Dr. Dan Crommelin in the Netherlands. And then next one is going to be held in New Orleans in association with AAPS.
But
so, that's PSWC, that's science, that's Pharmaceutical Sciences World Congress is, I think, very, very important in how can I say, integrating all the pharmaceutical scientists in the world, including US, EU, and Asian countries. So otherwise, we don't have good chance to see each other. APS is, of course, one of the biggest meeting. However, most of the attendees are from the North America. Of course, some from Europe and the Asia. But in PSWC, the contribution from the Asian countries and European countries will be much more. So then we have a platform to talk about the pharmaceutical sciences by having those kind of PSWC meetings.
Yeah, that was what I was asking. So I was really asking, what was the driving force? And it was your view that you needed to have this integration and that you needed to have leadership in FIP, and that's because of the international aspect. And it's been wonderful. I think we have been very fortunate. I think let me say this, I think we are living in the golden age of pharmaceutical sciences. This is the best time.
Yeah.
Maybe better in the future. I don't know. Do you think it'd be better in the future, or do you think?
I hope it will be better in future. But I don't know how to say that. But I would say, at least in Japan, I don't know the situation in the U.S., but in Japan, the pharmaceutical sciences, in the field of pharmaceutical sciences, our research area, the drug metabolism, pharmacokinetics, drug delivery, those kind of research area now considered to be one of the most important area. But in the whole, I don't know how to say that, in the whole life science area or science area, this kind of area is not necessarily considered so important, because in our country, the very, very basic science, like the finding the new synthesis mechanism or finding the new proteins, or finding the new principle, like the central dogma, those are the very important science. But a kind of multidisciplinary science like our field is not necessarily considered so important. So then, I think that my next target is to make our science field to be more recognized by the basic scientists. That's really important.
Well, I think I've attended some of the meetings you have organized, and I think you are well on your way to making that happen. Because I think a good example of what you told us in terms of this joint venture to get the government to fund this is a wonderful example of being recognized. So what are your students going to do? What today, where do you see your students going? Where is the future for the students in your program?
I think that in my laboratory, we have been producing so many PhD students and also master students. And then most of them, I would say more than 85% of those students went to the pharmaceutical industry, mainly in Japan, the major 5-10 pharmaceutical industry. So nowadays, many of my students are studying very hard in the pharmaceutical industry, particularly in drug metabolism and pharmacokinetics, or some students are working in clinical pharmacology, clinical development area. So then, I am afraid of the tendency that in my country, that I am afraid of the tendency that very good student, smart student, do not necessarily want to stay in the academia area. So that we have that kind of tendency. I don't know that mechanism, but probably, for example, my associate professor and assistant professors in my laboratory are working so hard, probably too hard. I don't push, but they are working too hard because, they like science, So, however, if the graduate student who are looking at the young, the associate and assistant professors, probably they feel that they don't have the good quality of life. That's actually not true. They are really enjoying the science. Right. So recently I talked to my young scientist, the associate and assistant professor. Try to enjoy your life so that the young graduate student may be attracted by this the academia area. I think that is a very important issue.
But I'm not so sure. I think we all feel that. I'm not so sure that that's unique now. I think it was the same in the past. And I think there still is very attractive. Certainly, I know the assistant and associate professors in your laboratory, and also the ones that have left and become professors elsewhere, have succeeded. And it's been a very enjoyable life. So I'm not as concerned as you, and I think we should be concerned. It's something we should be concerned with all the time. So let's talk about what you are planning, because in the Japanese system, you have to retire in how many years?
In about 3 years and a half.
Yeah.
I have to retire from my university.
Right. And what are you planning to do then?
I really want to continue my science. I don't want to get involved in the administration anymore. I'm currently the dean of my school, but I can retire from my deanship after 1 year and a half. So then I want to focus or concentrate on the science. So then, after 3 years and a half, I'm going to retire from my university. And after that, what I'm planning is to get research position, maybe director in some research institute or something like that. So then, I'll do probably only the in silico studies. So, my dream, after, let's say, 6-7 years from now on, is that looking at the chemical structure. So then we do predict the metabolic stability and transport activities, and all of those adomate properties, including membrane transporting activities. But probably pharmacological activities or toxicological activity, we have to do some experiment. But together with those kind of information, just by looking at the chemical structure, we can simulate all the time profiles as a function of dose in the target tissue, brain, tumor, or liver, kidney, or of course plasma profile. I think that could be possible. So then that is really my dream. And actually, my current research grant, as I told you before, that will facilitate my idea, because with that grant, I can do quite a lot of, the pet studies in human. So by doing so, we can measure the time profile of a drug in the tissue, various kinds of tissues. So then, with the help of in vitro transport studies, binding studies, and metabolism studies, we can predict, based on our modeling simulation approach, the time profile of a drug in the human tissue. And we can confirm whether our prediction is correct or not by the PET studies. Okay. That's really my dream. And finally, I want to make that prediction just based on the chemical structure. That's really what I'm hoping.
Okay, so let's see. You said you wanted to do that in 7 years.
Yeah.
So then what are you going to do? Then you've solved all the problems. There's nothing more to do.
Well, after 7 years, maybe I'll be close to 70 years old. So I'm different from you. So maybe I'm going to retire from the science area, or without doing any research, maybe I want to focus on writing a textbook just by myself on PK, PD, drug transporters.
That would be good.
Yeah.
So Yuichi, it's been a great pleasure having you come and share your views with us. You have been easily the most influential Japanese pharmaceutical scientist. You have been innovative, you have led your field, you have been very active internationally. You've been a very strong member of the American Association of Pharmaceutical Scientists, and so I congratulate you and thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us today.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Les.